Welcome to Email and Beyond, the podcast bringing you the latest email marketing and other complementary marketing channel tips, tricks, industry chat, brand insights, and more every 2 weeks. Join me, Richard Wall, Marketing Campaign Manager at Spotler, and Kate Barrett, Founder and CEO of eFocus Marketing, as we talk you through the good, the bad, and the ugly of marketing, and how you can create a more intelligent strategy that gets results.
Welcome to another episode of Email and Beyond, and we are back for season 2.
Yes, we are.
Can you believe it? We've got even more knowledge, even more tips, tricks. We may even have some interviews for you this season. So let's dive into our first episode, and something that I think is critical for marketers to understand generally, and in this instance, email marketers specifically, is where are you with your strategy? You know, we love to benchmark against open and click rates. That's your kind of KPIs. It's a very good place to start. You should absolutely do that and benchmark against yourself. But in terms of strategy and what you're focusing on, where you go next, and those elements that you want to bring in, the maturity model is a great way to look at it. So, Rich, Spotler has come up with this maturity model. Tell us more about it. What does it mean? How do we look at it?
So, like we say, a marketing strategy, it can so often be this nebulous thing. You know, like we said, you've got your daily campaigns, you've got your events, you've got your podcast launches, you've got your opens and clicks, your daily KPIs of getting stuff. Like that stuff's important because that's what brings in the clicks. But
tells you what's working and what's not working. That's your baseline level for your stats, isn't it? So when you're looking at your strategy, you can go, oh yeah, this worked, this didn't work. What do we do next? And then the what do we do next comes into the model.
And that's the point. The model is, what is it in aid of? What's that bigger goal that you're reaching towards? And we started with a fairly simple point. Like, marketers have 2 challenges: acquisition, retention. Everything else is in service of those 2 in some respect.
100%.
And then so we thought, let's break that down again. And so acquisition goes into awareness, consideration, conversion, top funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel. We know this stuff, but it's then breaking that down into further stages of, when it comes to acquisition, are you yelling at everybody? Are you sending, one-to-one approach of ABM type approach? Are you somewhere in the middle? Are you doing a few personal outreach and some mass stuff? And there's a whole variety of stuff that lives in there. So the model is about kind of systematizing it, turning it into steps, because when we talk about brands that are killing it, they think, oh, well, we'll never get to the level of strategy. Yeah, not in one leap, but the point is to say, look, okay, there's 5, 6, 7 stages here. You're at stage 2. To get to stage 7, you're not going to do it in 3 weeks, but given 2 years and the right amount of software, we can get you there. And the first step is this one and that one, and you pick forward. So it's about moving it forward in a way that it is measurable, but it's also achievable. It's not like, we want to be as good as whoever your biggest fan brand is, because it's what can we do incrementally to make those steps.
It's like climbing a wall, isn't it? Those climbing walls that you take with kids and adults too. You can climb up, and it's, what is that next hook? Where's that next place on the wall that I'm going to go next? Am I going to go left? Am I going to go right? Where is that pathway to get me to the top? And that final kind of piece of, we're doing good things and now we're just going to tweak and optimize, but you've got to build up and find those rungs along the way.
I love that, because also, I'm going to stretch the analogy beyond the point you started in, that, your goal's there, but maybe you want to go there. Like there's a path, and
sometimes just fly.
Sometimes you're going to
That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But that's the point, that you take steps to say, okay, we're great at retaining customers, but we're not good at getting them in the door. Yeah. So is that a conversion problem? Are we not saying the right things when it comes to putting the money on the table? Or are we bringing the wrong people into the funnel entirely? Where on that step, how far back do we look? What steps do we take that actually have the biggest improvement on our actual goal?
Brilliant.
And that's exactly what the model is going to do. So we've also broken it down into kind of, as we say, maturity. We've taken it as 4 stages. So we call people broadcasters, segmenters, recommenders, predictors. And the
predictors are at that kind of high level, and we go from the start all the way.
Exactly. So your broadcaster is, mass communication. You're sending the same or pretty much a similar email to everybody. You're sharing things on your main LinkedIn feed, and that's it. You're talking at a mass level, and the right people are coming out of the woodwork. And that, for some businesses, that's fine. That gives them enough to drive their revenue targets, their KPIs, whatever it is.
Good starting point.
Yeah,
You've got to start somewhere.
You got to do
it will make you revenue, but
and then you've got segment is hopefully fairly obvious. So for us, are you making more money in the construction industry? Are banking and finance people your main target? How do you talk to those guys differently, or those people differently about, and how do you get them in the door with different things? So that's a bit more tailored for what they're telling you. And then recommender is taking that next step rather than them telling you what they want, which again, a valid step. It's part of the journey and you need to know it. But saying, what can we tell those people? What do they need to know? What should they know? This is what I've lost in my head what that is, but there's solution aware, problem aware, and unaware.
Okay.
Yes, product aware, solution aware, problem aware, unaware. So
in terms of the stages that somebody goes through when they're starting to come into that life cycle and the thought process.
Exactly. So the recommender stage is, they know what they're doing and what they're doing well, but they might not even be aware that there's, for example, website personalization until Activate came into the group. I hadn't really thought about that being a thing for myself. But so the businesses that say, oh, we can personalize our website. That's amazing. We're brilliant. We'll do that. We'll build that into our segmenting journey.
Show different content for those groups.
So it's that, and part of the piece of the puzzle for us is how do you balance that self-service versus the recommendation? We want customers to, they know their market and their business better than us. Of course they do. So some of it has to be them telling us what they need, what they want. But then the model and our expertise gives us the confidence to say, actually, you need this, but there's also this bit that you haven't even thought of yet that will do wonders for you, because they're focused on their KPIs and their day-to-days, getting the regular stuff done, and they haven't had the ability to step back, so we can kind of provide that outside view, that extra eye.
So as an overview, so we've got broadcaster is the first step, sending same thing to everyone but doing something, which is always good.
Distraction.
Then we've got segmenter, where you're starting to think, these groups of people might need something slightly different. Perhaps you're starting to tailor your content in those broadcasts that you're doing a little bit more. Maybe you're starting to bring in a little bit of automation into what you're doing. Right message, right person, right time.
There we go.
Then we go into recommender, where you're building on all of that. You're starting to really think, okay, personalization. So more than just segmentation in the groups, you're starting to think about, how do the product recommendations or the content recommendations change for this person based on what they've done? And then when you're at the end of the maturity model and never at the end of your work, right?
No, never.
But then you've got the predictor. So with the predictor, that's what it says on the tin, right? Yes. You're actually starting to think beyond the behavior that's already happened and consider what might happen going forward, and that predictive nature. So I love this because it breaks it down so simply that people can identify themselves in those stages: broadcaster, segmenter, predictor, recommender, and then predictor. You can really break it down. So if you were a company looking at this and thinking, okay, well, what stage am I in? We've given them a little overview of what they might be looking at, but how do you at Spotler, how do your teams look at your customers and say, we think that you are a predictor or a segmenter or wherever that might be?
Well, it depends on the customer first of all, and it depends on how much Spotler tech they're using, how much other tech they're using. It's a whole array. Some people are fully into Spotler using every single platform. They're our favourites, obviously.
And they're getting towards the predictor side.
They're getting sort of bottom right. We'll show you the picture of the model. Predictors on their attention, doing everything they possibly can. And there's some that are using one or two platforms, a lot of third party, and then other stuff in the middle. So we can take what we know about their Spotler use and plot it, but it has to be a collaborative process. To have to say to them, look, this is the model. And part of it is showing them the entire model, helping them self-identify, self-select the different stages of which bits they're doing. Like we said, some people do awareness very well, but retention very poorly, or vice versa. Or some combination. But showing them the whole thing, you also sort of start that conversation of saying that this is the whole thing. And if you start knowing where you are and what you could do, that's when you start thinking that you want to do it. If we just say, oh, you do this, this, and this, and we want to sell you this thing that does this, it feels a bit forced. Whereas if we say, we show you this whole journey and the whole one contains case studies and references for everyone who's in different stages, it helps them build that internal ambition for them to say to themselves, oh, we could be doing this. This is really interesting. I want to get to here. And then we start mapping it out. So there's, like I said, it's a careful balancing act and varies for every customer about how much it's self-serve, how much it's guided.
Yeah.
But it's giving both sides a clear model and a guide and a map, essentially, of what is possible. And customers do surprise you sometimes. Sometimes you'll have an expectation of, from your knowledge of the industry, from existing customers in their space, you think, oh, they'll probably want to go in here. And then they'll come out of left field and say, oh, actually, no, hang on, we want to focus here. You go, oh, cool. Okay.
And I think that's the great thing. In each level of the model, there are those key aspects. You've got your data and how you're using it for segmentation and personalization, either in your automated campaigns or in your manual BAU campaigns. You've got what you're doing with your testing. You know, are you just testing subject line, or are you going deep into psychology around wording and all of those exciting things? So I think probably something that will be really helpful to our listeners, to our watchers, is if we add a link below this episode to go to a little quiz that will help them work out where they are. So look out for that link below this episode, and you can go figure out, are you a broadcaster? Are you a segmenter, a recommender, or a predictor? So we'll leave that link below. This gives you that starting point. You can go, right, okay, so I'm a broadcaster right now. I know I'm sending the same thing to everyone. What's my next step to get to being a segmenter? So we'll help you identify where you are now. And then what you want to do once you know that is figure out those steps. Now, a great way to bring this in is to link in that life cycle journey, customer journey, whatever you want to call it. But we're going through awareness, consideration, purchase and experience, loyalty, and then win back. So we've got those 5 stages. So what we want to encourage our clients and our audience today to do is to think about, okay, so you've identified yourself, let's say, in the segmenter stage of your strategic life cycle. Now we need to go into your customer life cycle. And we'll talk about the differences between B2B and B2C because there's some slightly different campaigns. But what you need to do, and again, we'll show this on the screen as we're talking, is think about the different campaigns that are going to be your next step to moving to that next stage of the maturity model in each stage of the life cycle. Now, we've done episodes on life cycle and talking about the importance of that previously. And again, we'll link to that below the episode so you can go and check back on that. But it's really about moving people through that thought process from, like you said, when they are unaware of you, just become aware of you in acquisition, start to think about your product and service. Is it the right fit for them? What's their need? What's their challenges in consideration stage, through to purchase, experience, loyalty, and then through to win back. So with any of your campaigns, whether it's email marketing specifically, whether it's how you're using WhatsApp or SMS or the personalization on your website, you've got to be thinking about where that person is in the life cycle. Because if you are sending out, let's say, a welcome series, use some basic examples, you're sending out a welcome series when somebody signs up. Now, if they sign up through the purchase process, you obviously don't want your normal welcome series to go out. You want a post-purchase welcome series to go out. So even just using that as one basic example, you've got to adapt your messaging. And again, can you see how when you think about the life cycle, as you start to break down what would people need at each stage, you start to move yourself through the maturity model as well. So they are intrinsically linked with what you do next, the campaigns you think about, the tactics that you put in place, how you look at your KPIs and what they're telling you. It all comes back to these 2 elements. And then right back up at the top, are you focusing on acquisition or retention? Because that tells you where in the life cycle you focus. Acquisition, you focus at the beginning of the life cycle. retention,
Right down the
middle
end.
to end. Absolutely. So let's start with B2C as an example. If we're thinking about, so let's say if somebody's a broadcaster.
Yes.
And I had a couple of clients actually that I did some mini audits on for Spotler clients in the last few weeks. And absolutely, I would kind of class them as broadcasters. So they were sending the same message to everyone, not a lot of resources internally, didn't have any automations in place. I'm sure a lot of you listening can relate to this. You know, it's not something to be ashamed of. Absolutely not, because they're doing email marketing, which is brilliant. And now they know they want to do more. So when I was looking at the audits for these, thinking, okay, so they are broadcasters right now. Now, I could recommend predictor strategies where they're using AI to look at what people have interacted with previously or bought previously and trying to predict it. But that's a leap to the top of the climbing wall.
Yes, it is.
I'm not going to make it without falling, right? I'm going to get caught by my safety harness. And your safety harness is thinking about it in terms of that maturity model. So, right, I'm a broadcaster right now. And with these clients, the first thing that we suggested was getting a basic welcome program in place. Actually, even before that, they didn't really have email signups on their website outside of an inquiry or a purchase process. So let's get the basics in place, get that email only sign up, get your welcome series in place. Start thinking about your 3 core segments, let's say, and that might just be purchased, not purchased.
Yeah,
that's a really good place to start. Or with these companies, it was about category of interest, you know, were they interested in this type of restaurant or going out to this type of venue or those types of things, for example. So think about where you are now. If you're a broadcaster, start there. Start at the beginning. Think about those life cycle stages. So the examples that I gave there, we've got awareness and consideration with your email sign up and your welcome program. And then thinking about when they're in consideration and loyalty, because those stages are very similar. One's purchased, one hasn't. But when you're thinking about that, you want to think about your segments. How am I talking to these different groups based on what category they are, based on whether they've purchased or not, and they're in consideration or loyalty. So those are the types of campaigns that we would really think about and encourage you to think about when you're looking at your life cycle stage.
Email and Beyond is an eFocus Marketing and Spotler production. eFocus Marketing are a specialist email marketing agency based in the UK and serving customers around the world. We help brands use email more intelligently to engage your audience through our range of consultancy, management, and training services. To find out more about how eFocus can help you supercharge your email marketing, visit e-focusmarketing.com/email and beyond.
So when you're looking at those different campaigns, we've talked about broadcaster there, if you're a segmenter, a recommender, predictor, what's your next step? What's your next step as a business in your strategy, but also based on those life cycle stages? So Rich, what do you think, in your experience of using this maturity model, what do you think are some of the key elements that people should be looking at to let them know they're perhaps ready to move to the next stage? You know, when you're at the tipping point between segmenter and recommender, for example, what puts you into that tipping point, do you think?
I think it comes down to how much do you know about your customers? How much of that information can you use? Because, you know, we've talked about getting those email sign up bits and building that, and you learn once you've got an email sign up, you've got a profile in CRM and you start to capture more of their interest, understand a bit more. So do you have enough information to make those segments smaller? So, for example, we say industry is a great segment to start in for us, and if that's as far as you can go, fine. Use that data, use it smartly. What we found with the personalization thing, which really comes in recommender stage, is that getting personalization wrong is worse than not doing it. Like if I'm selling, I don't know, new wallpaper, how you're going to redecorate your house, you've looked on my website, looked at some of the wallpaper samples that I've got, and I send you a follow-up email saying, "Hi Karen, do you like our wallpaper?" Not great, is it? It'd be much better to say, hi there, did you like our So getting the name is a particular one, but
it's hard though, isn't it? When you get into data quality like that, I mean, I've looked at clients' data before, and you've got Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and swear words we won't say on the podcast. Not that we're averse to swearing here, but you know, I think name is a really difficult one. I think anything that is known data that you're asking people for that isn't an open field effectively is difficult. So yes, use first name, but do some analysis on what's the quality of our data. So when we're looking at clients' data, we'll look at what percentage of that field is actually completed, because a lot of people find that they, might have 60% not completed first name fields, in which case you've got to come up with a plan of what you want to do. What's the quality of those names coming in there? I mean, you can do some really cool stuff with this. I've even had clients where we've looked at, and I'll use first name as an example, looked at first name, worked out the percentages of people who have different names within that list, and they've gone and called products after the names that they've got the most people of on their list. Like if it's a shoe company, for example, it might be the Kate shoe, or the Mary Jane, or the Isabel, or whatever it is. It really works. Or like when Coke did it, with their personalization, everyone wanted to buy the Coke bottles with their names on, and they had to try and find them. It was a whole big thing. Or Starbucks writing people's names on cups. The power of a name is really, really big. In psychology, it's all about hearing people hearing their name makes them feel empowered, makes them feel important, makes them feel special, those types of things. So even a name and using that data. But I think also if we're looking deeper at what you can use, what you know about your audience, if you want to get from segmenter to recommender to predictor, you've got to understand them. So that's collecting known data, so data you've asked, but you've got to be careful it doesn't change. Address, company, what they're looking for in interests, that can change. You've got to build it with that other data as well, right? So, with Spotler, for example, the Activate product is fantastic at showing where people are on your website, what they're looking at, what they're doing. Now you can also then personalize the content, not only in your emails based on that, but on the website too. Bringing that journey together, understanding. So I think when you're looking at data about your subscribers, you've got to go beyond one piece if you can. Purchase, not purchased. I mean, that's reasonably clear and black and white is a start. But when it's known data, go beyond that. Look at the behavioral data, look at your purchase data and connect it all in. And then I think, we talked back at the beginning of the episode about KPIs. Your open rates, your click rates, your unsubscribe rates, your complaint rates, all of those types of things. And I think it comes into and is intrinsic for the maturity model and where people are in the life cycle to know if you've got the right people. You said earlier, have you got the right people coming in to allow you to move your strategy in that way? What are your messages that you're communicating with them? So I totally agree with you. I think you've got to look deep. You've got to look from both sides, but when you add those together, you're going to figure out where you're on the maturity model. You're going to figure out where your customers are in the life cycle, in that journey, and then you can connect them together. And that's where the power comes in. That's where the magic comes in. When we think about B2B and B2C, now we can use this same model. We can use the same life cycle journey. Timings will be different. Timings will be different for every business within the life cycle journey, whether you're e-commerce or B2B or whatever you are. But we can bring the same life cycle model in. We can bring the same maturity model in. The tactics you use within each, the messaging, who you're targeting, what your KPIs look like. Do you think that's where the difference is? What else would you add to that?
I mean, I suppose that they are largely the same on a lot of this. I mean, the B2B versus B2C, how much do they learn from each other debate is never going to die off.
I think people should be learning more from each. I think if you are an e-commerce business and you want to get to the next stage, go and look at B2B businesses, see what they're doing. Go and look at other e-commerce. Go and look at charity. Go and look outside of your sphere. I think there's even more value, to be honest, for B2B looking at B2C, because B2C or D2C, whatever you want to call it now, usually is a step ahead in terms of strategy, tactics, personalization. I don't know if that's because e-commerce, D2C, B2C companies feel like they have more data about their subscribers. Maybe B2B feel they don't have as much, but as we know, with the technology out there and with the right strategy, with understanding where you are and where you want to go to next, that data is just as available to you. Just because it's not products, a lot of B2B businesses that I speak to don't necessarily or aren't necessarily able to connect that purchase data in. That can be a big problem. But you can look at how many webinars is someone coming on, how many downloads are they doing, what content are they engaging with, what categories of content. There's so much data available for B2B. And I think, I don't know, is it laziness? Is it not understanding? Is it thinking we're B2B, so we're boring? Oh, e-commerce can do all the fun stuff, we can't. Because I really don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I think we forget, like, of course there are differences. Like B2C on the whole, you sell generally to one person.
Yeah.
And B2B, when they say what a buying committee is on average 8 people, now you have to win over. But the bit I want to pick on there is not the 8, it's the people. Like that might be. So, like we shared all of our peopleness when we come to work, swipe in, log in, do whatever we do. Like you're still appealing to the same. If someone's excited about a B2B product, they're going to sell it internally the same way that a B2C brand can build that. So there is a lot of that. And I suppose what the main difference I was thinking about as you were talking was B2C sort of shorter sales cycles. They've got to grab that attention and use it immediately. B2B have to play the longer game because, especially in sort of the SaaS arena where you're talking about a year, 24-month contract type deal, then obviously there's a bit in the middle where everyone's just doing their thing. But we could learn from B2C and like what are those bits we need to make sure someone's still excited about it. So rather than someone using your software for 3 months and going, it's fine, I'll go back to what I was doing before, and then come to renew and go, oh yeah, it was quite good. Like you have to refight that battle again. What can we do? What can we take in the short term of like keeping that hype? And B2C does that really well because it's a short, repetitive buying cycle rather than longer term.
You've got to work harder for B2B.
But then equally, B2C, you go buy something and it's a one and done transaction. I buy a pair of shoes. I'm not going to buy another pair of shoes for a couple of years. So a B2C brand, Converse in this case, could use those B2B tactics. Think, okay, what do we do on that longer term when the purchase cycle is whether I'm confused. I think there's 2 definitions of a purchase cycle here. Possibly there's the cycle of when do I decide I need new shoes to when I walk out of a shoe shop, box in hand, and then there's when do I buy shoes and then how long do those shoes last before I replace them again? And those are both buying cycles, but they're not the same. Do you think, or do you think there is one a stage of the other?
So so say those both again.
So there's. I look down one day and go, ugh, these shoes are old and filthy and falling apart. I need new shoes.
So need versus want, effectively.
So when.
So and I do agree. They are different because want is very much driven by excitement and innovation or the next thing, and we can relate that to B2C and B2B, right?
Yes.
You go, I need that innovation. I need to drive my company forward, or I need that pair of shoes. They are the trend at the moment, the fashion, all of that kind of thing. Whereas absolutely what you say is want versus, want is that kind of excitement, and then need is that, shit.
My feet are cold.
The water's getting in, that kind of thing. But it's the same with B2B and technology. is what I'm thinking. It's exactly the same, the need and the want. So you need it as in you cannot function without it. You can't walk down the street. You can't send your emails without an email service provider or a CRM behind it, versus, oh, I want that new piece of technology to help me move forward, or that. Yeah, I love that. Really interesting.
Also, if we swing it back onto a maturity model as well, that you might get really excited by a predictor level technology, but if we say like, well, you're a baby segmenter at the moment, you're like, it's great that you're excited about this, but we need to pause and say, hang on, you're not going to get the value out of it now if you buy. So it helps us in the long term. You sacrifice the short term, going, we'll sell you that product, sure, but you put that aside and go, well, we could sell it to you, but actually, until you've done this, this, and this, you're going to be getting distracted and not getting the full value. So I would rather wait and do it. So it has benefits both ways, and a trade-off of happier customers in the long term, because you've taken the time to say, no, you don't need this yet. You're not there.
I think for B2B, that's probably a lot more prevalent than B2C, because like you say, in general, B2C is a lot quicker. It's a pair of socks, it's a pair of shoes, whereas B2B, everything in Spotler's case, somebody is signing up for a contract for 2 years, 3 years, whatever that might be. So you've got to make sure that it's going to meet your needs, not only now, but in the future. Whereas with a pair of shoes, if you change your mind in a week or two, don't buy another pair of shoes, right? You're not in a contract with Converse for those shoes. But so I think that's really interesting. And it's all of these things that you've got to consider. But like you said, whether you're B2B or B2C, don't run before you can walk. Or I've got a 7-month-old daughter, and she's just started sitting on her own, and she's a bit like a weeble at the moment, and then she'll fall over or what have you. But so she's practicing, she's getting there. We all have to do it, right? Say it to my 6-year-old, you've got to practice. It's one step at a time. You don't suddenly learn how to write a whole book. You've got to learn how to write each letter first.
I like that.
And then what letters come into words. We were reading a book with him last night, and the word said. When you look at the word said, it shouldn't be said. It should be sayed. But you have to learn these things. You have to go through the steps, and some things are quick steps, and some things take a lot longer. But I think kind of bringing it back round, that's where understanding the customer life cycle, understanding that customer journey, linking that into the Spotler maturity model helps to give you such a clear view of what those next steps are. So I think the next thing for everyone listening to do is go and have a look at the quiz, see where you are. Are you a broadcaster, a segmenter, a recommender, or a predictor? Where are you? Is your focus acquisition, or is it retention? That's going to tell you where in the life cycle to go for those first steps. I think we've said it before, just remember, you can only do one thing at a time. So pick your battles,
take the steps,
pick your next step, and grow with that maturity model. Richard, anything you want to add to wrap us up?
That's it. Understand where you are. We'll come with you on the journey, but
yes, we're here.
Make it work for you. Do it properly. Don't jump on and don't try and jump to where you think you deserve to be or think you need to be. There's a step, there's stages, there's ways to get there, and you'll do much better. Taking it rationally, slowly, step at a time.
I agree. Excellent. So check out our next episodes coming up, which will help you with some of those tactics that you're going to be implementing at each stage. So thank you very much for listening or watching, and we'll see you again on the next episode of Email and Beyond.
If you like this episode, please follow us on YouTube and subscribe through iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts.